Today, I'd like to introduce Mr. Mel Shaw. Glen Keane is an animator at Disney as well. His father is Bill Keane, who you may know from doing the Family Circus comic strips and newspapers.
Well, in the comic strip, there's the three kids there, and there's the little dog in the corner. That was me.
You were the
dog in the
I see. Okay. All right. And our third guest is Gary Graff. Okay. I understand you're also interested in softball and outdoor recreation.
Yeah.
I say we have a game coming up this next Monday if you'd be interested in playing. We need a
could
left fielder real bad, you know.
That's my position.
Is that right? Okay. All right. Well, I'd just like to open it up to you to explain. I guess you'd talk about Fox and the Hound first. We can start off talking about that.
The type of work that I do is concept. And the animated cartoon business is not the type of thing where you just take a subject matter and you say, this is what we're going to animate. You have to have quite a few choices.
Mm-hmm. So
we prepare ideas and concepts, story adaptations from many books, many ideas that come into the studio. In this particular case, we prepared the Fox and the Hounds from Mannix's book. And like Bambi, Mannix's book is quite a bloody book. But the thing that is so interesting about it is his writing gave you an insight to the senses of animals. And we feel that the basics of the story is that you are to try to transport your audience to feeling and having some sort of empathy for the animal itself.
Right, almost as if it's a human character.
Yeah, that's right. And the audience won't relate to an animal that you don't feel for. And this, of course, is the art of animation, being able to do a thing like that. So in the development of the story, trying to make it palatable for an audience, we take out all the blood and guts, naturally. In this case, the story was one where the fox's family were all killed by the hunters and the people in the area. And this one farmer took the fox and started to raise it. And up on the side of the hill, there was a trapper who had many dogs, and the dogs were trained to hunt for him. And of course, fox is one of their prime pelts that they go after. But the way we took the story, as we did in Bambi, we took the animals when they were very young. We took the fox when he was a pup, and he was very playful, and he accidentally runs into one of the hound puppies. And they have a lot of fun together, and they're playing together, and they become fast friends. Well, Ollie and Frank immediately saw the possibilities of what they could animate with the little pup and the fox meeting one another. Now, that wasn't even in the book.
Oh, really?
But they saw the possibilities of that type of a meeting and the personality that could be brought out with that.
So they just immediately
So they went right away and they started animating the thing, and they showed everybody else the possibilities of it. And it became a very important factor in saying, all right, we're going to go on this. And about that time, Mr. Keane here was involved in the early days of animation, and he was working with Ollie, and he was getting some of his basic training there. Now, he is our genius now. Ollie and Frank are gone. And
when you're animating, you're really looking for
a walking encyclopedia, really.
Yeah, you're looking for a handle, on the character.
Yeah.
Because you've got a character design. You kind of have an idea of what you want it to look like, but to really start animating the thing, you need some spark. And
I guess that's true. There's certain voices that only fit certain types of characters or movements.
Yeah.
You can't picture some people with a high squeaky voice or whatever. So that.
Sure. A blind person can really know probably more about a person than a person who can see, just because they can hear the voice, and they can tell an awful lot about that person just by the way they hear. And so we'll sit down and listen to just lots of voices, just keep listening to them. Close our eyes and imagine, can I see this character really animating on the screen? Do they hit their lines with enough punch, that I can really play with that and do something with it? Does it really excite me? And once you find that, boy, it makes all the difference in animation. If you don't get it, then you're struggling and fighting the whole time. With doing voices with little kids in a picture, you do a picture for 4.5 years. A 5-year-old kid is suddenly almost 10 years old by the end of the picture.
That's right.
So you have to try to get those recordings at the beginning.
Oh.
Now, for the case of Rescuers, the guy who did Snoops, Joe Flynn, died.
That's right. I remember that.
Beginning of the picture, and they recorded enough dialogue to get them into it, where they couldn't get out of having that character, and they considered having Rich Little come in and do voices, but it just wouldn't have the same realism.
Right.
And
how did they get out of that?
well, we had several scenes in there where we'd just taken little bits from different tracks and put them together and used it that way.
I mean, sentences, different words?
Yeah, different words.
You made him say different sentences, but
yeah,
that's incredible.
and then some things we just did without, pantomime, where he didn't have dialogue.
Oh,
and
I
also
see.
tried to cut him out of most of the picture where we didn't need him, we didn't use him.
I noticed there's been a big fall off of, the 40s or 50s, there was like 5 movies in each of those decades, animated films, and in the 60s there were 3, and I think in the 70s there were 3. Is there a effort now going on to try to increase the output of animated? I know you got Fox and the Hound and Black Cauldron already for the 80s. Is there an effort to try to get it back up to 5 or 6 movies in a decade? Or?
Yeah, we're trying to build our staff now to a point where we'll be able to put out a feature every 2 years, where you would be having two groups working on a picture at the same time. 2 features going on at the same time. So we need more people to do that, obviously, but that's the intentions of our staff now. And in those days, how many people did they have working, Mel, when you guys were doing
We had approximately 2,000 people working there, trainees and everything else.
This was in the early days?
Just animation. The studio was built just around animation.
Mel, tell your comparison story.
The story is that in the 30s we had 2,000 animators and about 50 bookkeepers. Now we have 2,000 bookkeepers and about 50 artists.
I might mention, you were there in what, early 30s, late 30s?
37 is when I started there. I started in the business about 1932 when I was 16. But that was with Looney Tunes. They were just starting then.
Oh, is that right?
All of the people we were talking about, they were all from Kansas City here. Because the ones who started Looney Tunes, they always used to tell me about Swole Park and everything that went around here, and they worked at the Kansas City Film Ad, places like that. And they all came out with Walt about the same time, and then they split off and decided to get their own contract.
Oh, I see.
Same thing with Abai Works later on, and then he came back.
So you were with them through Snow White and...
No, I wasn't there at Snow White. Snow White had just been preview.
Okay. Well, you did help on Fantasia.
Yeah, I started on Fantasia, and then it wasn't Fantasia then, it was a group of shorts. Classical shorts. And then we got together with Story Meetings and decided to put them all together and make a concert program out of it. And then we got Stokowski and so forth, and then it started to have the
Just a superb film. I just really love seeing it.
One of the things I like to mention in particular at that time, how innovative Walt was in the picture itself, is that most people don't realize it, but when Fantasia came out, there was no such a thing as stereo sound.
Frank and Ollie were saying something about that. There was a 7-track sound system.
We had to rent the theaters. That's why it never got much of distribution in those days. We'd rent the theater, put in our own sound system, and then it had to be shown with 7 tracks, separate tracks, to get that sound effect. But now everybody has stereo. You even have it in your automobiles. Your little radio sets all have stereo.
Sure, that 1940, wasn't it, when Fantasia came out? They were
So
just barely getting into color film then, I think, weren't they?
Yeah, it was very innovative at the time. But I think basically the philosophy of the studio is that you have to do classic type of animation, and you have to go all out to make sure that what you're doing is forever. And the attitude has to be there. It's not something that just snap it out like.
The first clip is the dog in the log with the fox above it when they're just pups, and you say Frank and Ollie did the animation on this, right?
They did, yeah.
Frank did most of the stuff on this part in here.
Okay, all right, let's take a look at this. Let's see how we do it. Now, these are the original pencil etchings, right?
Yeah.
What you smell? I'm on the trail, so. Trail what? I don't know yet. Why, it's you.
Was that copper grown up then?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh.
that was a scene I had done where their first confrontation there, where they finally come face to face.
Uh-huh.
And that scene is the lead into the climax of the picture, where Todd is racing up Todd is the fox, and he's racing up this hill, and right near this waterfall, there's this huge, gigantic waterfall coming down there, and as they're going up this hill, they cross this log over the waterfall, Todd and this girl fox he's racing away with, and the hunter is chasing them with his dog, and the dog races up this hill and comes up to these big roots where this fallen tree has gone over the waterfall, and he's sniffing around, smelling, and he smells something, and he realizes it's not the fox. And there's this huge 9 million foot grizzly that stands up there, and then, well, you'll see some of that part take place
Yeah,
there.
that's in the next clip.
Yeah.
Well, maybe you can show us, this is, what, 99 pages of...
Yeah, these are a few drawings of...
Now, these individual frames that you drew?
Yeah. Now, this is about 4 seconds worth of film time, and this is why it takes us so many years to do a picture. It took us 4.5 years to do the
Make
fox
sure we
and
got
hound.
a shot on that?
Yeah, I'm gonna
Okay.
try to get it for your camera here.
Okay.
I
Who's
don't know
going to be
about
on this
that.
camera here?
Okay, well,
Now, this is
I
4
got
seconds
these
of film, right?
come down like this.
Can you see it all right, Mark?
I'll flip it for the audience.
Okay.
The fox comes up the next to bear and then bites his ear,
Oh, that's just incredible.
pulls him back.
24 of those drawings a second is what you're saying.
I can't believe that. Now, you have to draw each one of those separately? Every movement?
Yeah, there's no easy way about it yet. It's still do it just the same. There's no computers that'll do it for you.
Oh, man.
And this, we figured out there's probably about over 500,000 drawings goes into a picture, to do one of these features.
How many drawings would you say you do on an average animator would do on a picture? I realize you probably have more of an input, but...
Probably, 5,000 drawings or so. Actually, like for every one of these drawings, I do about 10 anyway. You just do them and you throw them out. I think Disney throws out more paper than is in the redwood forest.
Oh,
It's just,
man. Well, how do you go about, getting this transpired onto the next page with just a slight movement? I mean, the exact same drawing with a slight movement. I don't understand any of that.
well, in animation, you don't move it one little bit at a time. You think of the major poses in the scene. Suppose a character is going to punch somebody.
Right.
You come back with a hand like this, and you do this drawing. Then maybe you'll do this drawing, and then you'll have what we call an in-betweener. We'll do
I
the
learned
ones.
that up at the Chicago Film Conference. They
Yeah.
kept referring to in-betweens, and finally I was glad somebody said, what's an in-between?
Yeah.
And I said, that's what gets your arm from here to here, as an
Yeah.
in-between.
So the animator doesn't have to do all. I don't do all these. My in-betweener followed through on some other ones.
I see.
But I did the major action, so where the fox is stretched out and he's landing. Then I'll do the contact drawing where he starts to land on the bear, and then
Okay.
what we call the squash drawing where he hits the fur, and then as he slides down, you do the important things that describe the action.
I see.
Now I worked at a studio for a summer when I was at Cal Arts, and we did Saturday morning shows like Fat Albert and some of those. Now we would do a half-hour show in a week. And here, this took us 4.5 years to do 90 minutes, 3 half-hour shows.
Quite an adaptation for you to go to that.
I never
extreme.
was comfortable at this other place.
Right.
It wasn't in my blood, I guess, and I'm glad it wasn't,
Right.
because this is really the best expression of the film medium I think you can get.
Let me show this other clip that precedes this, what you just showed us, and then you can talk a little bit more about that. Let's take a look at this other clip.
So then there Todd has to decide what he's going to do. Go with this girl fox or go back and help his friend. And then this is the scene where the audience first sees he makes that decision where he comes and lands on the bear's back. And then he fights the bear, and the bear becomes so enraged at this fox. They fight up this hill, and the fox goes across, gets knocked out onto this log, and the bear comes out there onto the log. Then you can see the picture.
They always do that.
Animator really has to work from his mind and then get it down.
You kind of feel like you're an actor yourself, don't you, in putting those drawings on paper, because you're making doing the movements or whatever.
Yeah, we had a character in The Fox and the Hound, a badger, and he was always talking like this, and his jaw was always sticking out and stuff. So when I'm drawing, I'm always doing this, and man, I left, my jaws would be so sore by the end of the day, because you're into it all the time.
There's one quick question I wanted to ask you about the color. Now, do you only work with pencil and do all these drawings or whatever you use there? You never see color? The color is added completely later?
Yeah, I don't have anything to do with the color, the ink and paint on the thing. Mel, at the beginning of a picture, sets up the look of a picture in terms of color. Like in The Fox and the Hound, he was what you would call our color stylist for the picture. But I don't deal with that. I just deal with pencil.
You do that, and then they film the entire thing or sequences in what you've done, and then they add the color over later after it's all been filmed, like we saw here.
Well, they'll take one of these drawings and they'll Xerox it onto a same sheet of paper, except it's not paper; it's clear celluloid, as you know. And then it's done on Xerox line, and then they'll paint the back of it, and that's how you get your color. And then they'll put that on top of a background every new frame for every frame.
Now, that method of Xerox is relatively new for animation, isn't it?
Yeah.
The Pinocchio and Fantasia, you didn't have any.
No, we had inkers that used to trace the lines.